Scarlett, and in this video I'm going to be talking about male ancestral trauma. So in the last video I talked about female trauma, so this is part 2 for masculine trauma. So spiritually we've all had lives as both masculine and feminine, but usually with the form that you are in your physical body in this life, you will tend to feel that connection more with those respective past life scenarios. I want to explain a bit more about ancestral trauma and then go through some common themes for male trauma that are beneficial to address to have greater healing and to have a greater understanding of yourself. Ancestral trauma is basically trauma that is inherited in the body from your ancestors, from your previous lives, from basically the energy that gets passed down to you, both spiritually and physically. So there's a growing field known as epigenetics, and it basically explains that genetically the things we experience in our lives and somatically are passed down to us from our ancestors. So if you've ever wondered why you feel certain things but there's no obvious answer to them, it could be related to ancestral trauma. So for example, let's say you had a really good childhood but you struggle with addiction issues or certain things that don't really have a clear explanation. It could be something that is from generations past that is in the DNA in the spiritual body, but it's nothing to be overly concerned about, just something that I want to address in this video so that you can create the awareness to create healing around it and find greater peace within. When it comes to trauma, we're talking about things that are unconscious, right? A lot of the behaviors that people carry out are not things they consciously want to do or that they're even aware of, but they're just sort of patterns of behavior or thoughts or beliefs or emotions that are happening kind of on their own. And this is because our unconscious mind runs 90% of what we do. If it were easy to be conscious of everything we're doing, then we would be at a place where everything's really easy to manifest, everything goes smoothly, life is in alignment. So when there's anything that feels like it's like something beyond your conscious control or something where you feel it's creating a block or it's not resonant to who you really are, what you really desire, then it's usually the unconscious mind. And this is unconscious wounding, unconscious trauma. And the way that you heal this is by creating awareness. So creating awareness as to these patterns and finding the root of the behavior, finding the causality behind it, and then shining awareness is the technique that you use to basically dissolve it and create a new pattern that is more aligned with your true will. The first common theme I want to discuss with male trauma is that of military trauma and violence. So a lot of the masculine trauma has to do with the fact that a lot of men have had to go to war and have had to do really difficult things in the name of patriotism or defense. And this type of trauma can create a feeling of emotional turmoil within. So if you've ever felt just this overwhelming feeling of guilt or shame or feeling anger or fear or just like a restlessness, and this can happen with the divine feminine too if they're tuning into their past male lives. But for a lot of the masculine energy, it's a very common collective thing to feel this military trauma. So we've been through so many wars throughout the centuries, and all of these wars have a very heavy psychic impact because at our core, at our nature, we're not really violent. We're meant to be loving, connected. And a lot of these campaigns and, propaganda throughout history have been sort of to desensitize men and create this image of heroism for going to war and for basically killing and creating violence, discord, a lot of just that energy of being against someone, the energy of conquering, of being in the ego and seeing people as other than and wanting to destroy. If you just think about even our movies and our video games, even though they're really fun to play, like Call of Duty and whatever, these things create this desensitization within the masculine, and it's contrary to our human nature. So really important to address any inner themes spiritually that might have to deal with war, violence, conflict, aggression. You can do this through spiritual practices, past life regressions, yogic practices. When you really tune in spiritually and you begin to advance, sometimes you'll just naturally have these sort of memories come up, or just feeling sensations. It's important to trust, a lot of people might think it's crazy or discount it, but when you're really in tune with yourself, you can feel these sort of energies and emotions, and by acknowledging them and validating them, you're more likely to heal those types of things. The next general theme for male trauma is emotional suppression. So it's been very difficult for men to not be able to feel their emotions or express their emotions. So throughout history, it's been very promoted, this idea that if you're a man, you're tough, you have to be thick-skinned, you gotta have it all together for everyone else, for the women and children. While there is a natural tendency for the masculine to be in this leadership and in this provider sort of character, it's very unnatural for a man to think that his emotions are shameful, or that he shouldn't feel, he shouldn't cry, he shouldn't be hurt. All those emotional suppressions, all the time that you may, throughout your life, throughout past lives, your ancestors' lives, that there's been this energy of suppression, that all gets stored into this energetic memory within. And so it's very important to begin to undo that sort of programming and to actually open up those layers of suppressed emotion. And that might look like feeling really intensely. That might look like allowing yourself to cry, to scream, to feel very deeply. And there's absolutely nothing shameful about it. It's completely natural. In my experience, men are actually just as emotional as women. I believe it's just social programming that allows women to be soft and emotional. But spiritually, our souls perceive and process energy similarly. So it makes sense more that we actually are both emotional beings, because emotion is how the energy is perceived by us. It's how it moves, how it processes. So some good ways that you can begin to heal this is tuning into your own vulnerability. So allowing yourself to be vulnerable, opening up to friends, to lovers, being allowing people to see your perceived weaknesses, which becomes a strength. It's actually a lot harder to be vulnerable than to pretend to be perfect and have it all together. So it can be deeply healing for a man to open up to his fellow men, to his brothers, to have, a sacred space where you can share different things you're experiencing, different issues, and to realize the commonality with other men who also, when they see that one person's open emotionally, it helps them to open emotionally. So I think it's the direction we're moving in. I definitely see that more men are becoming more embracing of that emotional aspect of themselves. And this is actually very attractive to women when a man is in tune with his emotions, because when a guy pretends to be emotionless, he actually ends up having this inner volatility, or this inner energy that looks like he can cry any moment or scream any moment or explode, and that's because there's just packed in emotion. So a man who really knows how to regulate his emotions, his nervous system, becomes very attractive, very balanced, and this shows in the way he interacts with people. One thing that men have defaulted to because of this emotional suppression is a lot of men might create codependent attachments to women and to the feminine, because people can process energy for each other, especially in intimate containers. So you want to be careful as a man who wants to be in his masculine power not to heavily rely on a partner, a female partner, or a female friend to be the emotional processor for you. You want to be sovereign in the sense that you can talk to people and share with them, but you are taking responsibility for your own emotions, which is the best way to create that strength, that emotional resilience. The next general theme I want to address is the male trauma related to the performance, the ability to perform and to provide. So because men have been typically the breadwinners, the hunter-gatherers, the ones that provide financially, this has tended to put a lot of pressure on the masculine, where sometimes their self-worth is just fully tied into how they can perform. And this will translate sexually into the bedroom as well. As I've mentioned before in previous videos, our sexual blueprint is our life blueprint. So it goes both ways. If a man is confident in his sexual performance, that will translate outside of the bedroom and he'll be confident in his work performance. And vice versa. If a guy is in his work performance not feeling confident, that could affect his sexual performance, for better or for worse. So a lot of this whole performance need for, impressing the family, the tribe, the society, the woman, the wife, has created this inner turmoil where a lot of men feel that if they make one little mistake that they're just a failure, or if there's another man who's earning or who can provide more, then he's superior to him, or he can really have strong feelings for a woman but think, oh, she has other suitors who earn more than me, so why should I even try? It's really important to heal these ancestral traumas, also related to the stress, right? It could be so stressful to think that as a man you have to make it. If you don't, you let down everybody. Everyone's looking at you, everyone's expecting you to do your best. So it can be very stressful and tied in with the whole emotional suppression. This can create a lot of inner trauma that is carried on through the generations. This ties into the next general theme that I want to discuss, and that is addiction. So a lot of the divine masculine has tended to, in the past, turn to addictions as a way of processing the emotions that they have not allowed themselves to process. I know addictions run with both genders, but I do feel that it's a little bit more common with the masculine, just because women have been more socially allowed to feel their emotions and to process their emotions. It's very important to address addiction, addictive behaviors, by going within, going internal, and understanding that at the root of every addiction is some type of trauma or wounding or something within the self that one is trying to avoid, one is trying to escape, right? And addictions take many forms, right? It can be anything from alcohol to television to being addicted to always going out and not, being alone. So anytime that one feels that they need to escape themselves repeatedly, and it usually will hinge on one specific activity that's the go-to kind of soothing balm that keeps one from feeling their feelings. This is why spiritual practices like meditation and yoga are so important, because they force you to sit with yourself. They force you to be with yourself, to sit in front of that mirror of who you really are and see what's going on within you. Anytime you're trying to escape the self through repetitive behavior, you're going in that old patterning, that karmic ancestral patterning of addiction. And anytime you're forcing yourself through the discomfort and pain of feeling your emotions, seeing who you truly are, just being with yourself. Super important to spend time alone. This is undoing the emotional ancestral traumas and patterns. Another thing I'll mention is that in general, it's been easier for the masculine to be more indulging in the ego. So more about things related to power, control, domination, seeing yourself as separate, being competitive. So it's more socially acceptable with that masculine solar energy to be against another. So more, trying to outdo, trying to outperform. And whenever you're in the ego, that creates attachment and suffering, as opposed to being in the spirit and embracing more feminine qualities, like instead of competition, cooperation, instead of striving and needing to climb to the top, embracing that sort of Taoist energy that's more yielding. And there's so many books of wisdom, different philosophies that actually show that there's a powerful strength in that feminine energy of yielding, of allowing something to phase itself out, not needing to exert energy, but rather being strategic with your energy, allowing yourself to listen to something bigger than the ego, to be led by the spirit, by that infinite intelligence. One thing that I'm seeing a lot lately, especially in spiritual communities, is that there's a lot more of a movement to create men's circles and men's groups. I would definitely suggest that if that's something, especially if you're like a lot of people that reach out to me and are of a spiritual mindset, but you feel kind of isolated or alone, you're like, I don't know where to meet like-minded people. I highly suggest to be proactive, be in the healthy masculine energy, and start a group, start a meetup group, get those conversations going, allow yourself to be that different energy that's that first person on the dance floor, like the first person to take the lead in bringing in something healthier. And there's a lot of healing in that, bringing masculine energy together under that intention of greater healing, greater spiritual evolution. And aside from that, connecting with the feminine can also be very healing, because a woman will mirror your own inner feminine. So sometimes guys will be like, oh, I don't want to be in the friend zone, whatever. And I made a video about, how to get out of the friend zone. But there's also a duality to that and a contrary opinion, which is what's wrong with the friend zone? Sometimes just being friends with a woman can have such benefit in the sense that you learn to see your own inner feminine. You're no longer just disowning your inner feminine or seeing the feminine as only sexual, which translates to the inside. If you see other women as only in this objectified way, then you actually get cut off from your own inner feeling and emotions and intuitiveness. So allowing yourself to open to women and learning from and allowing that energy to help you heal, because as I mentioned before, women can be really powerful allies for emotional processing, but you just don't want to do this in a codependent way, but rather in a interdependent way where you are friends with the feminine or you're close with the feminine figure, and your masculine is helping her inner masculine and her inner feminine is helping you, which is kind of one aspect of Tantra. So that's mostly it for this video. I'm sure there's a lot of other themes that can come up, and you guys can share that in the comments, but these are the ones that stick out the most to me. And as I mentioned before, with ancestral healing, very important to go within to reveal these unconscious memories, beliefs, emotions. And I do that through hypnotherapy, through tantric yoga, which are powerful healing modalities to help make the unconscious conscious, because that's what all of life is us going through all these different scenarios, becoming conscious of who we are. And that is the process of life, of self-realization, realizing who we really are, undoing all the patterns and themes and traumas, and going back to that purity, the true self, the God, goddess self. So you guys can find information on my website if you want to work with me one-on-one, doing coaching and going deeper with that healing, that shadow work. So thanks for watching this video. Please leave your comments and let me know if any of this resonates with you. And please subscribe for more content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.